There comes a moment, quiet, unannounced, when something in you loosens its grip. Not because you've figured it out, not because you've reached a milestone, but because somewhere along the way, the effort becomes heavier than the pain it's trying to resolve. This is not the moment healing ends. It's often the moment it actually begins. You might notice it first in the body, a subtle fatigue, not the kind that comes from despair, but the kind that comes from over-managing yourself. The constant scanning, the internal checklists, the subtle pressure to be doing the work, even in moments that were once meant to be restful. At some point, even growth starts to feel like a job. And that's usually when the nervous system whispers something inconvenient and wise enough. Most people misunderstand this moment. They think it's giving up, regression, avoidance, laziness, a loss of discipline. But it's none of those things. It's the moment the system stops cooperating with force. For a long time, trying to heal feels noble, responsible, necessary. You read, you reflect, you process, you track patterns and trace causes. You connect dots between childhood and now. You learn the language of trauma, attachment, regulation, shadow, integration. You become fluent in your own interior architecture. And for a while that helps. Awareness does bring relief. Naming things can soften them. But eventually something strange happens. You realize you're still standing outside the experience, managing it, watching yourself feel, narrating your reactions, explaining your ache instead of sitting with it. Healing becomes another role to perform well, and the body, faithful, patient, blunt, eventually refuses to play along. This refusal doesn't come as a dramatic breakdown. It often comes as disinterest. You stop reaching for insights. You feel less compelled to figure out why. You find yourself more willing to sit in silence even if nothing resolves. At first, this can be unsettling. The mind asks, if I'm not trying, am I abandoning myself? If I stop seeking clarity, will I get stuck? If I don't keep working on this, will it swallow me again? But something else becomes apparent slowly and gently. You're still here. The feelings are still here too, but they're no longer being interrogated. They're allowed to arrive, linger, and leave without being turned into projects. The ache no longer needs a backstory to justify its presence. This is a profound shift, even if it doesn't look like one from the outside. You begin to notice that healing doesn't respond well to command and control. It responds to safety, to permission, to being met rather than managed. Trying to heal often comes from a subtle belief that something is wrong with you, that there is a state you're supposed to reach where discomfort disappears and coherence becomes permanent. Stopping doesn't mean you no longer care. It means you no longer treat yourself as a problem to be solved. This is where things soften. You may still feel sadness, longing, confusion, grief that has no clear edges. But now these emotions aren't signals of failure. They're simply weather moving through a system that trusts itself enough not to interfere. There's a difference between effort and presence. Effort says, I must change this experience. Presence says, I can stay with this experience. The latter requires less energy but more courage. When you stop trying to heal, you may notice moments of surprising normalcy. A walk that doesn't turn into a metaphor. A breath that isn't regulated, just breathed. A conversation where you're not monitoring your responses for insight. Nothing profound happens. And that's the point. Healing, it turns out, doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It arrives like a settling, like furniture being placed where it naturally belongs after months of rearranging. You stop asking, "Am I better yet?" because the question no longer makes sense. Better than what? Better for whom? What replaces it is quieter. Can I be with myself today? Not optimally, not gracefully, just honestly. This shift also changes how you relate to time. You stop measuring progress in weeks or breakthroughs. You stop expecting closure on a schedule. You realize that integration happens sideways through repetition, ordinariness, and rest. You begin to trust that whatever needs your attention will return on its own. And it does, not as a crisis, not as a demand, but as a gentle tap on the shoulder. This is why stopping isn't the same as avoiding. Avoidance is tight, distracting, anxious. Stopping is spacious, grounded, calm. One is a flight, the other is a landing. If you're in this moment now, where the striving has lost its shine, where insight feels less important than breath, nothing has gone wrong. You haven't failed at healing. You've simply reached the part where healing no longer needs to be chased, where it's safe enough to wait, where you trust that what matters will surface without force, and what doesn't will quietly fall away. This is not the end of the journey. It's the moment you stop dragging yourself along it, and often that's when the body finally believes you're listening. Nothing needs to be fixed right now. Nothing needs to be proven. You're allowed to rest not as a reward, but as a posture. Healing knows where to find you.